Good evening, everyone. My name is JD Haughton, and I'm sliding into a Thursday night with another episode of the Sask Sports Show brought to you by Southwest Terminal. Tonight, Robin Ulrich will be joining me. Robin is the head coach of the Saskatoon Stars of the Saskatchewan Female U18 Hockey League. Tonight, Robin and I are going to just kind of talk about how the team's doing with their season being stopped. And we're going to break down the games they were able to play. And we're also going to talk about Robin's coaching philosophy and her playing career at the University of Saskatchewan. So hope you guys enjoy the show, and we'll be right back. And there she is, the guest of honor tonight. Robin, how you doing tonight? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
Doing all right. Just enjoying another somewhat chilly day here in Saskatoon.
Yeah, that it is.
So I'm just gonna start off asking how are you? How's this whole kind of pandemic / your season being stopped? Kind of how have you been able to handle it and the team as well?
I think it's been probably obviously one of the biggest challenges of my coaching career so far, just in simply you can't plan much. As coaches, we're really used to, I was talking to another coach about this the other day, we're really used to having our whole season laid out. We know our entire practice plan. We know when we're playing. You're just very, stuck to your schedule, and COVID's really flipped that on its head and made us have to really adapt a bunch. So, on one hand, that's been a big challenge. On the other hand, it's provided maybe a bit of a fun challenge to be able to try and come up with different ways to do things. And that's something we talked about with our players early in the season, was this is going to look different than we're used to, but it's also an opportunity for us to try some new stuff, do things a bit different way. Maybe we find a new way to do things that works, because, preseason has been done the same way for, all of time. So let's change it up and try something new. But I mean, for sure, it's definitely been a challenge with the stop and go and the getting a go ahead, and then only managing to get in an exhibition game and 2 league games before we got shut down again. So that's been tough. But I have to say that our girls have been excellent in terms of they still come to the rink every day, ready to get better, push themselves. And they've done a really good job of being resilient with this and not having a negative attitude or being whiny and complaining about it all the time. There's a little bit at the start, which everybody does because it's more frustrating than anything. But they've been excellent with just getting on board with whatever we're trying and making the best out of the situation that they can.
Well, and I guess, just like everybody else in sports today, it's just a learning curve. And like you said, there's really no way to deal with this because it's never happened before where it's had such a strain on sports. And, I can, this must be really hard for, some of your 17-year-old players that this is kind of this was going to be their year that they could try to get, noticed by a university. So it's good to hear that the girls are handling it well, but for those, those, I guess I would say those girls that this is their 17-year-old year, how are they handling it?
Tough for them, right? That's a tough, you don't envision that being your last year of AAA hockey is going to be, who knows, right? So I think it's been a tough year for them for sure. And like you said, in terms of the recruiting piece, and we only had one out of our 8 signed heading into the year. We knew that was going to be a challenge to get 7 signed. And then you add in the piece of us not playing. So there's a lack of ability to get game tape, and then scouts can't travel, not going to showcases. U Sports canceled their season and they're not using eligibility, and that creates a trickle down effect to us as well. So it's been a challenge for them, but I think for the most part, all of them have really taken the situation into their own hands. They've been emailing coaches, putting together highlight film. We've taken footage, video in practice, skill sessions, as much of the games as we could. We've got a program that we use as the team, so they're able to put their highlight reels together, and they've been doing their best to do what they can to get noticed by coaches. And luckily we've had 2 officially signed and 1 more coming up here probably in the next week or so that's going to sign. So that's been pretty positive, and they've had lots of communication, but for sure it's a big challenge for them trying to find a place to play.
Well, and like has the girls been able still to, because I know with the new restrictions that came out, you can only, I guess, practice or work out with 8 people or under. Are you still practicing, or are the girls still working out on their own? They having kind of team workouts with 8 people?
So right at this point, we're not meeting anymore face-to-face as a team. We skated up until last Thursday. We did have ice booked for this week, but we just decided as a group and a staff that our last skate would be the 10th, and that gives us a 14-day wash period until Christmas. We just felt with kind of the way things were going in the city and in the schools, we just wanted to make sure that our kids could have a normal Christmas. So we kind of took that approach. But I mean, up until that point, we still skated 3 times a week, groups of 8. So every group skated. We're able to extend our ice slot, which was nice. So they got on the ice every day for 40 minutes. Still did their off ice training again until last week in small groups. And now they're doing some stuff at home. So we've got some workout challenges for them. We do yoga sessions online every Sunday night. Have had a recovery session with Scott Sear from Husky Health, just doing some development pieces like that, mental training session, and then just some fun team building stuff we do Saturday mornings. Assistant coach Tony Barros put on a bingo, so we played a little bingo online. We did a get to know your teammates last week, and this week is going to be Christmas trivia. So we've managed to stay together as a team as much as we can, even though we haven't been together as a big group since the end of November, I guess.
Well, it seems, you guys have been able to keep them busy and not just say, you know what, yeah, we'll see you later,
Yeah.
Which is, some people might take that route. There's just and these girls, they're playing at an elite level, and it's kind of the stuff you have to do for them. But it's good to hear that you guys are still, doing things as a team, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said to them, when I signed up to be your coach, or when I agreed to be your coach, I agreed to be your coach in the good and the bad, and when it was easy, which I don't know when coaching is ever easy, but and when it's hard, and this is a hard time, and this is a tough time, and it's my job to make it the best for them and provide them with the best opportunities that are available based on what the rules are. And I think we've done a pretty good job too of just talking to them and understanding of the big picture. Like, yeah, this really sucks where we're at, but big picture in terms of being good citizens and doing our part to try and flatten the curve and all of that. We just do our part, and we'll do our best, and we'll make our best of the situation. So.
Well, I don't think you ever expected when you took the job that so much of this would be, it's the online presence that has come into all sorts of sports is unreal this year. And I I guess it's a learning curve for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started in the off season, we started doing some individual development plans with the players because everybody was stuck at home with lots of time and not much to do. So I think it was in May, we started it. They set 3 goals for themselves. Something, kind of like an on ice skill, an off ice skill, strength and conditioning piece, and had them working on those. And we met once a week to touch base on how it was going and give them some suggestions for how they could meet their goals. And for sure, I mean, that's the busiest off season I've ever had and the most impact I've been with my athletes through the off season ever. But I think it was really good because it really built those relationships with those players. Coming into last year, I mean, I had 20 brand new players who I didn't know. And so, you maybe don't get to know them as much as you would like to over the course of the season, but it was a really good opportunity to have lots of conversations with them over the summer and touch base. And I think that's been better for us going forward. But yeah, for sure. I mean, Zoom has become become our best friend in terms of our ability to meet as a full group. And I mean, it's not the best case scenario, but it's better than nothing.
Well, at least when if we have another pandemic or something that's going to shut the whole world down, you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've never thrown away so many schedules, just because things change so much that you think you've got your plan and you get it in place. And, when we got cut down to 8, we're like, okay, we'll go 3 groups. It'll be perfect. Get everything set up, get all our groups set up. And then we have 5 kids who are considered close contacts from various things from school or out of school. And now you got to rejig your whole schedule again that you spent a whole day working on. It's out the window and something new. So yeah, it's been, I guess it's been a good challenge in terms of flexibility and your ability to just roll with what's happening.
Well, and that's the hardest part too, especially when the case numbers started going up for these girls that go to public schools in Saskatoon. And, if there's an outbreak, then it's just the planning within the planning that you have to do. Like you said, every day is a new day.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I would get my assistant coaches would say text me on Saturday, what's the plan for Tuesday? And I'm like, I can tell you Monday night. Because I mean, I'll tell you what the general plan is, but that might change 3 times between now and then. And that's just kind of the way it's been. And I mean, they're in the same boat. They like to plan, they like to know what's going on, but it's tough to kind of get going. And same with the kids, like, I'll give you your groups on Monday night for what they are on Tuesday and Wednesday, because I'm just going to wait and see if I get any texts or phone calls from people, because I've learned my lesson about making schedules way ahead of time.
Oh.
So yeah, but I mean, our kid, like, I can't say enough about our kids. And like you said, going to public school, I think it's a lot of them, it's really tough because they understand what they need to do, and they're really bought into, the proper masking, following all the rules at the rink, really tightening up their social circles, and, doing all the stuff that they can do. And then they see classmates and peers who aren't really doing much of that outside of school. And I know that's really frustrating for them, but I mean, kudos to our kids for how well they've handled this, and the way they've really stepped up. And even though it could be easy to just follow what your peers do, they're really trying to do their part to make sure that we can drop our numbers and they can get back on the ice.
Well, for these girls, it's the added stress already is you dealing with school and playing high level hockey, and you got a pandemic thrown in the twist of all that too. Like, I couldn't imagine the stress of these, obviously you and your coaching staff as well, along with the kids. That is, I couldn't imagine doing that.
No. And I think, like, the one thing I've really noticed, adding in the way that school has had to change to adapt to deal with the pandemic, it's really added a lot more to their plates. Most are in the Quint system, where they're taking 1 class in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So that's essentially 3 classes in one day, and they're hammered down with homework. And I mean, it's been awesome how well so far they've been able to really balance everything, because I know there's a few that, if they have 2 sciences in the same Quint, they're just swamped, and they're basically, it's hockey and school and eat and sleep, and that's about it. But they've done a really good job of being able to handle it. And as a staff too, we've tried to make sure that we don't go too overboard with stuff too, to recognize that they're very busy with school, a lot of them. So it's important to allow time for that, because at the end of the day, student is the first piece, and that's going to be, in terms of female hockey, student's going to be the piece that's going to take you somewhere. So they need to do a good job of that as well.
Well, and I imagine that's probably a big, I would say a big, what's the word I'm trying to look for? I think that's probably a big part of your coaching style, working at the University of Saskatchewan, going to the U of S as well, having that student, that student athlete is, more than just school and hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming from the university background and understanding the piece that academics plays in it. And I mean, realistically, working through the recruiting process, both with our players now and when I was at the university level, we talk a lot about, like, in female hockey, there's not the big pot of gold at the end of the road. hockey is going to get you to school, and that's going to get you trained and get you a career that's going to set you up for the rest of your life. And that's really, really the big ticket. So if you can use education or hockey to get you your education, that's great. So, you have to be able to do the school piece to stay playing hockey, because really right now that's the only option. If you want to play hockey after high school at a high level, you have to go to school. So you have to be a good student, and that's what universities look for. If player A and B are equal, they're going to look at who's the better student. So, I mean, in terms of our group too, they all excel in the classroom and they work really hard at that. So that's also a great bonus for them.
Well, you look at like Haley Wickenheiser. I'm pretty sure she just went back to school to finish to get her medical degree.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and Haley's probably one of a handful of female hockey players in the world that could probably make a living at being a female hockey player, or make a living off of, endorsements and sponsorships and things like that. And I mean, she's very unique, right? And very driven. And like you said, went back to school later on, but again, able to use hockey to come back, play at U of C and finish her kin degree, and then move into medicine. So.
Well, that looks like, just talking about female hockey and the educational part, looks like a very good place to leave it for our favorite and best time of the night. It is the commercial time. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with, we're going to start talking about the Stars and start breaking down the team and their games, and talk about some of their committed players as well. So we'll be back in just a moment. And we're back on the Sask Sports Show. I'm here with my special guest, Robin Ulrich. As I learned before the show, it's not Ulrich, it's Ulrich.
Yeah.
So, so I just want to, we were talking about education and the importance of education in female hockey because of, there's like you said, there's no, gold at the end of the rainbow kind of situation. I just wanted to kind of talk and dive into the importance of female hockey in Saskatchewan. Like, as everybody knows, female hockey doesn't get the spotlight like men's hockey does. But just giving these girls a place to play among girls, because I know back home, a lot of the girls, are playing with boys teams. So what's your take on that, having a place for girls to play with girls?
Sure. I mean, I was similar. I grew up in a small town, and I played boys hockey until the beginning of midget, I guess, which at that time was only 2 years. So it was still grade 10, and played girls as well at the same time. So, I mean, for me growing up, that was a great advantage because I got to play both. So you get way more time on the ice and way more development. But in terms of having a place for girls to play with girls, I think when I was growing up, while the boys side was really competitive and I really enjoyed that, and I got to play with my friends from home, I think there's a lot missed out when you're changing by yourself in a dressing room, off away from everybody, and the ability to be in a group and feel like you're in the full team environment, not just kind of inserting in certain places is huge, and really being able to develop as a teammate and a leader, I think, is important. And not that you couldn't be that if you were playing boys hockey or co-ed hockey, whatever you want to call it. But I just think being able to have that full team dynamic and being able to really develop as a teammate, as a supportive teammate is really important. And something we've talked a lot about our girls with this year is just learning to be a good teammate and being supportive of other women and celebrating each other's success. Because I think sometimes that's, in terms of what they see social media, what they see on TV or Netflix, it doesn't always portray female relationships in the best way and how women should treat each other. And so we've spent, not to get too preachy, but we've spent a lot of time just talking about what it means to be a good teammate and be supportive of each other, celebrate each other's successes. And when somebody else is successful, that's a good thing because that's good for the whole team. So yeah, I guess that kind of really went off the rails, but that's where we're at. I think it's, I'm playing with other females is really important, and having a place to play and having an elite league for us at the AAA level, and now it's starting to filter down with the Bantam AA, I think is really important for development and for allowing our players to get better earlier and more advanced, and just helps them with their growth as they move forward.
Well, and that's the hardest thing too, when a girl's growing up in a small town, like you said, and having to play with boys, and there's no really other girl league to have that option if you are good enough to play at that elite AAA level. And it's awesome. And like you said, like girls, you know, like portraying the whole Netflix thing of being backstabbers and just being complete mean people to each other.
Yeah.
It's nice to I guess see that, you know, to teach girls not to be like that.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about Selling Sunset had kind of come out, had the new season had been out, and I won't lie, I watch it. And I hate it. It drives me crazy the way they treat each other and talk about being a family. But yeah, you know, so you can kind of use those. You can use those examples and say, hey, like, just so you understand, ladies, this is not how. Like, let's be really clear. I think we know this isn't how the real world functions, and just making sure that we are learning to mature and grow and the right way to treat people. And you know, we don't all have to be best friends in here, but we sure as heck are going to respect each other. So yeah.
Well, and being a team off the ice leads to being a team on the ice.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, having a strong culture, that's kind of the big buzzword. Everybody talks about is culture, right? But having that good team culture and being better as a team is going to lead to better results on the ice for sure.
So, like, I realize this is your first year in the league, but when you were at the U of S, did you kind of keep tabs on the U18 league while you were there?
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe not as much as I should have. I had a little piece in the scouting, would go to the odd tournament here or there and would keep up for a little bit, and would help out with the U18 summer camps. So I had a general idea of who was coming up throughout. But prior to taking this position last year, I had been away for a few years, so maybe wasn't 100% familiar with a lot of the league or a lot of my players, but obviously there's a handful that I knew of before then.
So what, like, obviously with this whole pandemic and this whole situation, what kind of showcases would have you guys have gone to? Like, would you guys go to that max tournament in Calgary, the female max tournament?
So they haven't had a female division in that for 2 years, maybe.
Oh,
so we would
times.
Yeah, and a little bit because of the Mandy Schwartz tournament, which would be at the beginning of December in Notre Dame, started, I think, to take a little more precedence. Was at a better time. Teams didn't have to travel at Christmas. Scouts went there because they didn't have to travel at Christmas then and be away from their families during Christmas time. So, so we would have done the Calgary Firestarter in September. I think it's about the second or third weekend in September. So it's always a really good beginning of the year tournament. You get 4 games for sure. Lots of scouts are there, really well attended by colleges and universities, both in Canada and the States. And it's a great team builder opportunity really early in the season to, you know, go on the road and get yourselves doing a little bit of team building and bonding. So we would have done that, and we would have done December would have been the Mandy Schwartz, and we were actually planning to go to a tournament in Detroit at the end of October this year. We had kicked that idea around, but obviously that kind of got nixed before it really got going. But those would have been the 2 or 3 to the Firestarter and Mandy Schwartz for sure, and then maybe that one in Detroit would have been the third one we attended. So those would have been our 3 big showcases this year.
That would have been a cool experience to go down to Detroit.
Yeah, I think Regina went down to that tournament last year and did really well at it. And looking for a chance to play some different teams, get a different experience, go see a different piece of the country or the continent is always good. So, yeah, work out.
Well, and just it's an opportunity for some of these girls to get their name out there too, get scouted.
Absolutely. Because we kind of have a two-piece process or a two-piece goal here as a program. One is to provide a place for girls to play and develop as young women and move forward. But then also two, it's to help them move on to post-secondary if that's where they decide they want to go and continue their hockey career. So that's kind of our second goal as a coaching staff out of this.
Well, speaking of the team, let's get into the team. Let's start. Obviously you guys only got to play 2 games. Like you said, you got to play 1 exhibition game and 2 league games. From the 3 games you guys got to play, what were the things that you liked so far?
I would say overall, what I've really liked is how we came into this season very driven to get better. And I think a little piece of that is being another year older and more mature for a lot of our players. But I've really liked our drive and our attention to trying to get better and really buying into that idea of we're going to challenge ourselves to be better every day. So I think that was pretty exciting. In terms of the couple games that we got to play, I really liked how I was able to see some of the concepts and things that we've been working on as a team come into play and that we'd put a lot of emphasis on early. Was really fun to be able to see those be executed and them starting to use those pieces. And then it was just exciting to see them finally get to play with how much they've improved, because I think they put in a ton of work over the summer in terms of their off-ice training and even lots of time shooting when they were able to get back on the ice, lots of skill sessions. And I think a lot of our players took a really big step in their development, and it was just fun to get to see them actually use that in a game versus practice or scrimmages against ourselves. So I think that was exciting, and it was just fun to get to be behind the bench for a real game. I can't lie, it's fun. What's the fun part for the games?
Well, and then it's all that hard work leading up to the game. Then you get there, and you're I don't know. You've been an assistant coach and a head coach, so maybe not the nerves are there, but I could imagine you were probably pretty nervous your first game as a Star.
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's our first one back in 7 months. Last time we had played had been in PA in March, so I think we had counted it was like 231 days since we played our last game. So I mean that was fun to feel that energy of game day again. I mean, whether you're a player or a coach, I mean, it's not as much being a coach anymore, but kind of felt like you had the game day vibes going, and it was fun to feel that again. So
what players kind of stood out in training camp and in the first 3 games you guys have played this season?
Yeah. So where do I start? I'll start on the back end in net. Caitlin Cadrain coming in as a grade 12 and really kind of having this be her first year out of Art in the Shadow, we could say that. I love the way that she just came into camp and it was like, I'm here now, this is my net, and just had a whole different level of confidence, and really you just see the way she carries herself, the way she interacts with her teammates. She's just very much like, I'm here and I've got this and I'm going to take you guys with me. And that was really fun. That's really fun to see, to see a kid really kind of have that self-confidence. And I mean, our first game against PA and even the second one that we won 7-2 made a couple of really big saves and points in the game, which could have, flipped the script completely. So that's really fun to see. So I think her stepping in has been excellent. And then even bringing in Tora Ward as a first-year goaltender, maybe had a bit of a trial by fire in her exhibition game, threw her in, and she faced, mid-game and got handed 2 5-on-3s and gave up some pretty good scoring chances on her. So she had a real trial by fire early, but the way that she works and takes takes feedback and instruction from our goalie coach, and the amount of growth I've seen in her in the last couple months is great too. So that's been really fun to see. From the defensive end, we got Callie Hebert in, who was a grade 12, come back to the city and signed with us to play for a year. And she's been fantastic. I mean, just a great skater, great with the puck, good decision maker. So she's been really fun to watch and see how she's stepped in and really even stepped into a bit of a leadership role, and bringing our young players along. It's tough. I mean, I'd love to talk about every single one of them because I think they've all put in a ton of work. Samantha Muller, I think ran every single day this summer, and her improvement has been huge. The back end, they've all improved. We've signed Jocelyn Fiala, and I know she's got quite the lineage in terms of her older brother and sister being very successful, and she's going to be really exciting to watch over the next couple of years as well, as she kind of gets comfortable and figures out how to use her skill set in this league. Great skater, good shot, loves to jump into the play, super dynamic in terms of being able to cut and ditch people, and so that's really fun to watch too. And she plays gritty and tough, and she's a big body, so again, fun to watch. On the front end, in terms of new players, brought in Kira Buziak from North Battleford, and that kid's got an insane set of hands. And when she figures out how to use some speed with those and get it to work at this level, it's going to be crazy. And she's very smart, can score goals, and those aren't often found in women's hockey, is girls that are able to score, and she's kind of one of those natural goal scorers, so that's really fun. Who else? Megan Hirschfeld came in as a rookie too, and that kid just flies. She's got wheels on her, and she's willing to go in and get dirty and muck around, and so she's really fun to watch. McKenna Kushnerek, our captain, coming in. Again, that kid just works and worked all summer, and she's just fun to watch all the time because she's just competitive and plays with an edge, and is really dynamic and has taken that up another step, as we were able to see in a couple of games. So I mean, like I said, I could talk about every single one because I think they've all, and not to sound super corny, they're all great, but they've all really, really brought another step, and it's been a really fun process. I mean, as much as the first part of the year has been really frustrating, it's been fun to get to work with this group that's really motivated.
So would you say that you have a pretty good even set up with offensive and defensive players? Like, you got that good mesh?
Yeah, I think so. We're maybe not super offensive, but I think we have ability to score across 3 or 4 lines. And I think our backhand has a really, really strong ability to chip in and play a piece in that. And so it's been fun to be able to play with that a little bit and see where we can go. And we've really pushed being offensive and really getting our D trying to get involved in the offense as well. So yeah, we've got a nice mix with how we can play offensively, but also we've got a decent amount of grit too. So, we can play in our own end as well.
No, that's awesome. You kind of need that balance, I feel, especially in hockey, to have that defense and offensive balance. It seems like you guys are kind of on the right path with that, from what you said.
For sure.
So what? Actually, you know what? I think before we kind of get into talking more about the league itself and the team, we're going to go to everybody's favorite time of the night. It's commercial time here on the Sask Sports Show. So once we get back, we will be talking about the league itself and kind of more about the team. So we will be right back. Okay, and we are back on the Sask Sports Show with Robin Ulrich. So before we went to commercial break, we were just talking about, kind of breaking down the team a little bit. And so now I'm going to ask you, how would you describe the team? If the team had a dating profile, how would you describe them?
I would say that we are that's a dating profile. I was gonna try and like get really yeah. We enjoy working hard. We love the grind. I don't mean that to sound weird, but and when we talk about the grind, we mean that was bad. We talk about just that daily like grind of workouts, training, just continuously, all the little pieces you have to do to get better. So, but I think we're a team that plays with. We like to play fast with a lot of speed. We like to be physical, and we're going to be. Our goal is to be the hardest working team on the ice every single night.
So I'm getting a little bit of a Herb Brooks comparison here,
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah, I mean, we talk. If we have to compete, you have to be the hardest worker on the ice, and you have to compete and push so that you're able to do all the pieces in terms of the skill piece that you work on. If we aren't stopping on pucks, battling, forechecking hard, being the first to the puck, putting pressure on the puck, forcing the other team to create turnovers, we don't have a chance to do all the fun stuff that we work on in terms of offense, right? So as much as it sounds really corny about being the hardest working, that's the base and the foundation of being able to do all the fun stuff.
Oh, who wants to be on the penalty kill all night long?
Sometimes we do, just
yeah, no, obviously scoring goals, putting goals up on that scoreboard, winning hockey games and outworking the other team is definitely kind of, I would say, the dating profile. If you had a 10, that would be what it would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
What as a coach, what are your end goals for the girls? Maybe not just this season, but kind of into the future.
I hope that we are creating strong young women that we can help, give them some good development so that they're able to move forward and be successful in the future, whether that's in school, whether that's athletically, but I think more importantly, in their communities. So to be good, strong young women who are going to move forward and be contributors in their community, leaders in their community. And I think for us, although that's very maybe altruistic and big piece, that's our big goal, is to create, to have really good, strong young women who are moving forward into the world.
Well, that's and speaking of education, like we've talked about all along, would you say that like the players that commit to universities, is it mostly Canadian universities, or do you get that NCAA mix thrown in there as well?
For sure, there's the NCAA mix. If you would have looked at the Stars 2, 3, 4 years ago, they had a lot of players going NCAA, and that's one partially skill level, partially choice. This year and last year we've had more staying up in Canada, and some of that's skill, some of that's just wanting to stay close to home. And I think a lot of the girls see the value in, you're going to get a really good, and not saying that the American universities aren't good, but you're going to get a really good education in Canada. For sure you're going to a good institution, and you're close to home. And I think that's important to a lot of them, is to be able to be close to home, be close to family, have them to be able to come watch you play all the time. I think for a lot of our players, those are important things as well. So that's maybe why we've seen a few more sign closer to home. They've had opportunities south, but for a few of them, that was really a big piece, was they wanted their mom and dad to be able to come watch them every weekend. They can go home, they have a bye weekend, and go see their mom and dad, or their parents or grandparents, or their family.
Well, and I would say Canadian women's university hockey is just as competitive in Canada as it is in the United States.
Absolutely. I think as the years have progressed, that's definitely youth sports is absolutely key to the NCAA Division One. I mean, obviously you probably still have your very top tier programs in Div 1 that would be stronger than the large majority or all of youth sports, but it doesn't mean that couldn't be competitive within those top tier programs. But yeah, for sure, youth sports has really closed the gap on that, and that's a piece of really good players deciding to stay home. And when they stay home, other girls see them stay home, and they don't feel that pressure like, oh, I have to go Div 1, because if I don't go Div 1, I'm not playing the best hockey that I could, or I'm not, like there's just all that peer pressure that I have to go that way. And when a few decide to stay home, when you get your handful of years ago, it was Caitlin Willoughby decided to stay home. This year, Brooklyn Stevely decided to stay home and play with the Huskies. I mean, those are big name kids that could have gone south, and they decide to stay here. That's a big draw to keep kids home.
Well, and I'm sure that Canadian universities are very happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was always our big, through my time at the U of S, was always, we got to try to find a way to keep kids here, and keep them playing in Canada, because that only makes our league stronger. So.
Well, and it also gives that, like you kind of touched on a little bit, that to a small girl or to a young girl that's just starting out in hockey, she sees that, and that's just, she's like, I want to be that. I want to be that girl that plays in Canada. Yeah. A good role model.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
would you say that, like, from let's say the Stars or even the Saskatchewan, like you guys' hockey league, is there a university that usually takes the cake on recruiting players?
I don't think so. I think all of our youth sports programs in Canada West for sure have all grabbed a good chunk of players. I know Manitoba usually has a handful of Sask kids. Obviously, Regina and Saskatchewan being the two hometown teams in the province, they both have good chunks of Saskatchewan kids. UFC they've signed 2 of ours this year, and they have a good handful of Saskatchewan kids. So I think within that Canada West piece, you're going to find a handful of Saskatchewan players or more on every single roster. So in terms of that, I think equal opportunity, and people know what they're getting when they're getting a Saskatchewan kid. And I think that always brings a piece of it as well. They know they're going to get a hard worker, down to earth, really good person, which obviously as a university coach's, character, and you're going to have somebody there for 5 years. You want a good person in your program.
Oh, and it's nice. It's nice to see these girls too, go to the U of S or the U of R, stay in Saskatchewan. But you're right. If any athlete that goes on to, higher level sports from Saskatchewan, you've seen it throughout the years. They're built to work and to compete.
Mm-hmm. Which coaches love.
Oh, so your time at the U of S, does the U of S have a bigger part with the Stars, because with the Stars being in Saskatoon?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously there's a definite split between the two programs, but I think we've probably gotten close over the last 2 years, and I think that's just a natural piece of me having spent 10 plus years with their program. I lean on them for some things, and they're always willing and offering to share pieces as well. So anytime that we can tap into resources that they have to help us out, because they might have access to a few more things than we do, or help us out in a few areas, I think that's always huge. And it's good for our players to be able to get a bit of a closer look at what the next level is. And Steve Cook, who's the head coach of the Huskies, him and I are really good friends and tight. So I mean, he's always more than willing to help us out with whatever we need. And so that's been a really nice piece as well. And getting to be in Merlis and this year at Sasktel Center in the same building as them is important too, because it allows our players to see what that next level is, and they get to see it every day, and the level that those players compete at and that they work at, and what their practices look like.
Well, speaking of, you guys playing at the Saskatoon Center, how has that been like playing, at the Saskatoon Center?
Good, I guess. So joked with the girls, it'll be the most empty seats you ever play in front of. Different environment. I think it's been, the one piece is it's really hard to communicate in there because it's so big that sound gets lost. So on one hand, that's been actually a bonus because it forces us to be really loud in our communication, which is always a challenge with players at this, well, I guess at any level for sure, but trying to get that communication and being loud enough that people can hear you, that's kind of been a bonus. We only had a couple one exhibition and a home game, but home opener was awesome. As Saskatoon Center's treated us fantastic and, let us use the Jumbotron and turned the lights off and made a real show of the home opener. So that was pretty fun for the girls to get a good experience after having, not had a home game for a long time. But yeah, it's definitely different. But I mean, again, Saskatoon Center has been fantastic in what they've been able to do for us out there and help us out as much as they can.
Well, I just have to ask, what made you guys want to go move to the Saskatoon Center?
I think it was, I wasn't really in the discussions on that, so I can't say everything for sure. But I think it was trying to move everybody as a pack out of Merlis into one place. And that would be kind of the best place that wouldn't be disruptive to the rest of minor hockey everywhere else as well. If they could move both Huskies teams and us in the contacts out there, we'd be playing in ice times that usually weren't filled for the most part, I don't think. So I could just be completely out to lunch here, and people who'd be watching this and be like, that's not it at all. But that would be my guess, is they could move all four of us and not disrupt minor hockey too much. And it was a place that they could say, okay, Stars, you have the ice this time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day, which I would way prefer to being, Tuesday night you're at Kinsman at 7, and then Wednesday you're going to be at Gemini at 8:45, and then next week it's going to be totally different. So just gave us a consistent place to be, I think. And we could store our gear and do all those pieces as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's a nice consistent place where you can just leave your stuff. You don't have to just keep packing it everywhere you go. Having you're at the same ice time all week, and you get to play in a big rink where the Blades play, where a WHL team gets to play. Like, I remember when I played hockey and I got to play. I was living in Kamloops. I got to play in the Blazers arena, and I was like, awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a good experience. It's a different experience for the kids. And as we said, there's a lot worse places we could have ended up. So we're quite happy with where we did. If we couldn't be at Merlis, that's a pretty darn good second place to be.
Well, let's just hope that you guys can, all this gets resolved and you guys can get back onto the ice and just play some hockey back in the Saskatoon Center.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, we are going to jump into a commercial break, everyone's favorite time of the night. And when we come back, I want to be interviewing you about your playing and your hockey career.
Cool.
So we'll be right back. Okay, so we are back on the Sask Sports Show. My special guest of the evening, Robin Ulrich. And we are going to be talking to Robin about her playing and coaching career. So I'm going to start off. You grew up, like you said, in a small town in near Estevan.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you have that opportunity to play, in a league like the U18 AAA Female Hockey League?
I did not. So the AAA league came 2 years, I think, after I graduated. So um, my team we were a bantam midget team. So we actually had 4 years that we played midget hockey technically. And we had a variety of leagues that we kind of bounced from, just depending on who had teams and what was available. So I think for 3 of the 4 years, for the most part, we kind of had a southern league that was us, Estevan, Weyburn, Swift, team out of Carlisle, kind of Moose Mountain area, Notre Dame. I don't know. I don't even remember. It's been a while. And then 1 year we played with the northeastern Saskatchewan side, so we were all the way up to Hudson Bay, Wynyard that way. So we put on a lot of miles. But no, I never had the opportunity to play AAA. So good, bad, I don't know. I loved my minor hockey experience. It was excellent, and I mean, I could have moved to Notre Dame and played there, or I guess the only other option would have been Melville with the Prairie Fire at the time. Were kind of the two big programs, but I honestly couldn't have moved away from home. So Estevan was my place to play. Was a bit of a homebody and whatnot, but I think everything's turned out well for me. So I can't look back and complain too much.
Well, and that's awesome that you had that opportunity, especially you got to play in a league where you got to play, probably as a team for 4 years.
Yeah. We had a good core of us that I'd say there's probably 8 or 9 of us that were, I don't want to say our age, but we were 86s. So there was about 8 of us that were about all the same age that stuck together. And I guess starting from Atom hockey all the way up through. And so, I mean, spent a lot of time with those girls throughout my growing up. And I mean, getting to have the same team for 4 years was mostly the same team for 4 years was pretty cool as well. So.
Oh, it's always great, and those are those players that you're comfortable with. You're like the Sedins on the ice. You know where you were going to be. You know how to play with each other. It's just great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty fun times with the Estevan Extreme.
What kind of hockey player were you? Were you the goal scorer? Were you the defensive type?
Well, it's going to depend on where I was. I was a goal scorer, I would say. Playmaker. I put up a lot. I don't like to talk about myself, but put up a decent amount of points in my minor hockey career, and then moved to, when I came to the U of S, was a forward there and was playing first line for the first couple of years. And then in my third year, I don't really know why or how it happened, but Steve said, "Hey, we need somebody else on the back end. Do you want to go play D?" And I said, okay, because I liked our D coach more than our forward coach, and it was a new challenge. And I ended up playing D. And I had played a little bit of D growing up whenever we were short defensemen, and my dad was my coach growing up all the time, and he'd put me on D, and he always thought I was more a defenseman, and I always told him, "No, Dad, I score goals. That's what I do." But making that switch over, that was a way more natural position for me, and I wish I would have listened to my dad way earlier. Who knows where that could have gone, but definitely more of an offensive defenseman. Bring the puck up the ice, quarterback the power play. But I like to defend and block shots too. So, I guess I probably should have started playing D a little bit earlier and seen where that took me. Because I had a pretty good 3 years on the back end with the Huskies. So it was too bad I didn't get to play at a higher level for a little bit longer and see where that went.
Well, in all honesty, I can see why you didn't want to, go play defense. If you're a goal scorer, you have that mindset of, I want to score goals, and to get out of that and go play a different position, it's hard. So I completely understand.
Yeah, no, it's a different mindset, but I think being on the back end suited my game a whole lot more in terms of seeing the ice and being a bit more of a playmaker probably than a goal scorer in all reality once we move to that next level.
So, getting recruited and signing with the U of S, committing and going to university, how did that all go about? Did they kind of notice you? They came to some games. They were watching you for a couple of years.
Yeah, so the U of S actually used to host. They hosted a showcase the long weekend of September every year, and so they would have 3 teams of bantam and midget hockey players, and then 1 team that was made up of all the rookies that were trying out for the Huskies. So I had attended that since grade 9, I think was the first year that I went. So I'd been going there consistently. So I was on their radar, and obviously they were on my radar. So that's kind of how that piece started. And then in my grade 12 year, I actually wasn't signed when I finished. We finished our season. I went to Manitoba's camp. Manitoba had a spring camp in April, and I went there, and their coach essentially said, hey, like, you're a player we could build a team around. So if you want to play here, you've got a spot. So I was like, sweet, I guess I'm going to win. And then I was playing some Saskatchewan spring hockey, like one of the only years that I played. And we had a couple practices in Saskatoon, and Donna Rayburn, who was the coach of the Huskies at the time, came to one of our practices and offered me a spot, and said, hey, like, you're on the team, we'll send you the training program and everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and U of S was a bit more natural choice for me. My mom is an alumni. She went here. I had family up in the city. Having come here, was familiar with the program, knew it was a really good school. So, made the decision to come to the U of S and not go to Manitoba and be a Bison and wear brown.
I think green's better than brown.
I agree.
So
it was excellent. John Rempel, great coach, good program. Just don't like brown.
Hey, that's totally understandable. If I had a choice, I'd probably stay in Saskatchewan too. So like you said, it was that, from day one, that was your goal, go to the U of S, play hockey be a Husky?
I wanted to go south, to be honest. And I had looked into that a little bit, but then I think the idea of going south was the idea of going to play NCAA and then the reality of what going south would mean were 2 different things. So, you kind of grow up with that, I want to go play NCAA. One of the girls who I had played with, her older sister, Trisha Guest, had gone down to Minnesota Duluth, and we had gone to watch them play a couple times. She won 3 national championships there. So, it was kind of like she was somebody I'd always looked up to. And so it was like, Trisha went to the States, I got to go to the States. And so I thought I wanted to go there, but then again, that reality of like, I got to move a long way away from home was definitely kind of a no-go when it actually came down to making the decision. And the U of S was a excellent opportunity and has turned out really well.
Well, it sounds like that, because I know Minnesota Duluth's men's team is, second to none. It's good as going to, Minnesota or going to played in Denver, Boston College, the University of even Boston. And I didn't realize that they had such a good women's program as well.
Yeah, I don't think they've been as successful in the last time. I could be completely wrong. I haven't been super dialed into everything that happens down there, but they traditionally have one of the stronger programs, and especially early on, Shannon Miller was the head coach down there, who was the head coach of Team Canada for a number of years. So she had brought in a good chunk of a handful of international players, had some good Finns in there, a couple Swedes, and then had a good tie into Canada as well. So yeah, they were really strong program for sure.
Well, from my experience, Wisconsin is the team, the women's hockey team to go play for. Be a Badger.
For sure. And I think that's where they've grown to for sure right now. Probably if you had to pick one place in the States, I think Wisco would be it. Fantastic program, excellent players. Their coach is phenomenal. From anything that I've heard from anybody that's played for him, great facility. That would be the premier place to head right now.
Would you say, just from watching videos of a NCAA women's hockey game, is the student environment the same at a CIS Canada West game compared to an NCAA game?
No. The only time it is, I would say, it would be when a team, like one of the Husky teams is in a final. That's about the only time I would say it matches. Been to football, basketball, men's hockey. Us, the year that we were able to host Can West, anytime that a team's in the final, the student environment is excellent and it's really fun to be a part of. But in terms of that consistent across the board, I think football here at the U of S has been doing a pretty good job of getting it. But I mean, in terms of that big student engagement, not there, which I think it's just maybe a big overall cultural piece that's, I don't know how you build it, but the States have done a phenomenal job of building it. And that's something that's tough to match for sure.
Oh, it's insane. It's even when you watch college basketball or college football, it's just like, like they have football stadiums that can hold 100,000 people.
Absolutely. And they pack them full.
Oh,
it's impossible to get a ticket. So, yeah.
I spent some time down in Oklahoma, just living down there, and that OU OSU rivalry is one, and just you go to Texas and all those stadiums, they're massive.
For sure. My cousin played semi-pro down in Oklahoma City for 14 years, so we went down to watch him a few times. I never got invited to go to an OU game, but my mom and dad went one time with a few people, and they just talked about how crazy it was. So it's on the bucket list of sports things to do once, hopefully pack some stadiums again here in the coming years.
Well, once you when you can actually go, and it's crazy in the state of Oklahoma. It's like the bottom half, South or Norman and South, all OU fans, and Stillwater and North is all OSU fans. It's crazy.
Yeah, or like in they have on the driveways on the concrete, they either have the Longhorn or the Cowboy symbol or the OU symbol spray painted on this concrete. Going down the street by each house who they cheer for. Really define it.
Well, it's funny when I bring up hockey to people and they're like, hockey? What?
Yeah.
I think the only hockey they know of is the Oklahoma City Oil Barons.
Yeah. Well, I think the Blazers had a pretty good following for a good chunk of years there, but when their program moved on, that kind of killed everything dead in the water.
Well, I feel like, did he play like ECHL?
Central League.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, what was I gonna say? I just lost my train of thought. Oh, your after your playing career was over, you spent 5 seasons at the U of S, and then how did the transition go from becoming a player and a student to becoming a part of their staff as an assistant coach?
Kind of accidentally a little bit. So I graduated. I had applied for physio school and I didn't get in, and I really didn't kind of know what I wanted to do. I had my kin degree, and so I decided I was going to go back for another year of university. Well, my dad loved that I just kept going to school. So I decided to go for another year of university, and that was essentially just to, I wanted to upgrade some classes, some marks, because that was a big piece of trying to get into physio. So I took 3 classes and I worked at the gym at the university, and the Huskies were starting training camp, and Steve said, "Hey, do you want to just come push some pucks for us? Because we could use an extra body on the ice." And I got nothing else to do. So yeah, for sure. And then they went to go play their first exhibition games down in Regina, and he's like, Dan, who was our other assistant coach at the time, who was new, he runs a vegetable market garden out of Outlook, and he couldn't go because that's, you know, kind of right in the big harvest and farmers market time. And so like, I don't have anybody to go with me. Do you want to come along? I was like, well, yes, I got nothing to do on the weekend, and all my friends are playing, so might as well come, right? Like, I mean, I think myself and Crystal Koppel were the only two that had graduated, and everybody else returned from the team. So I was like, well, all my friends are there, might as well go along. And after the weekend, Steve just said, hey, you know, how do you feel about staying on with the team and being an assistant coach with us? And I was like, well, I got nothing else to do. So, and I'd always known, I knew that I wanted to coach. Coaching's kind of always been a thing that's a piece of our family. Like I said, my dad coached me growing up. My cousin that had played down south in the States, him and my uncle started a hockey school in Estevan. So we had a little family hockey school that ran every summer for about 15 years. So I worked those all the time. My uncle, like, it was just, you know, it was kind of a natural thing that was going to be, okay, when I'm done, I'm going to coach. That's how I'm going to stay involved in the game. And Steve gave me the opportunity to step in and learn and coach at a super high level right off the bat. So obviously jumped at the opportunity. And again, it was a great opportunity. So that's kind of how I slid straight into the coaching stream right off of finishing playing.
Isn't it awesome when things happen kind of by accident, but it works out in the end for both parties?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you say that, like, the first couple of years of being an assistant coach was for you?
I would say it was a big learning curve, and it was really challenging. And I think the most difficult thing was, like I just said to you, all of my friends were on the team. So I went from, it was really hard to find that line of like, I'm your coach and I'm your friend. There's times I can hang out with you, and then there's times where I can't. And so that's going to mean I'm going to miss out on a lot of social stuff that I would have been a part of the year before, that I can't be, because I need to be able to kind of draw a line somewhere. And then you're in charge of people's ice time, and I have to decide whether my really good friend is going to play or not, you know, or sit them for, took a dumb penalty and you got to sit them. So I think that was probably my biggest challenge, was just being able to find that line. Learned a ton. I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and I tell players this all the time, is I learned when I stepped behind the bench how much time and thought went into decisions that were made. When I was a player, I'd see the coaches do something and you're like, what are they doing? Like, they just come up with this out of nowhere. They, you know, and you're so critical because you think they just decided something. And then you get on the other end of it and you see how long that's talked about in the coaches' room and everything that's brought up, and how, and Steve's really, really good at this, and I'm really thankful for learning this from him, is just his ability to say, like, how does this affect us all over the place? Like, big picture, what does this decision do? And so I really realized how much thought. So when you think something's decided this week, it was actually been talked about for probably 2 or 3 weeks leading up to it. And now they're making that decision. So that was probably one of the biggest things too, is kind of getting that look at the whole process behind what you get to see as a player.
Well, and that, you know, and each game's going to be different because there's going to be different matchups. You know, you might not be able to start your first line because their second line might be more, you guys might have more of a matchup on them, D pairing, stuff like that. And I can completely understand what you're saying. Like, it's not done 5 minutes before the game. Kate, pick names out of a hat. Yeah, you're starting. Yeah, you're starting. Yeah, okay, yeah, we're good. You know, there's a lot of time and effort that go into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, why are they changing the lines? Like, why are they making me and my D partner up? We've played together forever for 3 years. We're D partners. We can't be broken up. And then you listen, they've probably been talking for about a month before they do it. And you understand why, right? You get to understand the why behind a lot of stuff a whole lot more once you step behind the bench.
Well, and it could be just the simple sense of, you know, you shoot left, your D partner shoots left. You know, we might think on the power play, we might have a better opportunity to having a left and a right-handed shot playing D. It just could be things like that.
Yeah, or you guys are really strong, and we know you're strong together, but we need to split you up right now because the other four are struggling, and we need to use you guys to help offset what's happening. So.
And I don't think any player will be able to realize that until they coach.
No, I tell them it, but you can believe me or not. But I'm going to tell you, this is the one thing that I did realize, that these aren't, these don't just come out of nowhere. And so I try. I fail at this too, but I try to explain to sometimes where decisions come from, as much as I can, and as much as it's realistic for a group, but just to kind of give them an idea of what goes into that thought. Or, if they come and they question you about it, you can say, okay, I thought about this, but what about this and this and this? And they go, oh yeah, I didn't actually think about that. You're like, yeah, well, that's how we got to here. So.
No, and like I said, they're never gonna understand it completely until they step in your shoes.
For sure, and it's just a piece of maturity as well, and growing up and being able to kind of step out and do some big picture looking versus everything being pretty central focused.
So, you jumped into the scout role for a couple of years after being the assistant coach. What was that like for you? A different job title.
So I'll be honest, it was heartbreaking. Yeah. So in that time, I was 5 years with the assistant coach. I kind of worked a little bit, and I went back to school and took my education degree. And so at the end of the 13-14 season, I had finished my education degree, and I got a job back home. And that was kind of my only job offer. And I had to take it. It was the offer of a permanent full-time contract. And, those don't come up very often for a first-year teacher straight out of school. And so I had to step away. And that was pretty tough because I was really quite close with that group. And that was the year that we won. And so it was, on one hand, it was a great note to go out on. But on the other hand, it was really tough because we had a really good young team, and it felt like I was abandoning those kids. So then I moved home and was back there teaching and just doing a little bit of scouting when I could. So, Weyburn was the closest place. Went to the Mandy Schwartz tournament in Notre Dame and just kind of tried to catch as many games as I could and maybe watch a little bit more at that bantam level or the younger level before they stepped into AAA, just to kind of get an early look at some kids. But yeah, so obviously very different. And I was still coaching, just not hockey. So being the small town phys ed teacher, you get to coach volleyball and badminton and track and whatever else is on the table. So yeah.
So going from being your teaching job back home, how did it come about to you to get the head coaching job at the U of S?
So they had at the time, or I think they still do, they had a rotating sabbatical through the head coach staff at the U of S. And Steve and I had talked about it a handful of times or a number of times, that when it was his turn for the sabbatical, or when he felt like it was right for his turn, would I take the team for that year. And so it just worked out well. His year came up. He decided that was a good year for him to take off. I was able to get a year's leave out of my contract from the school division, which was fantastic. And they were really supportive of me taking that opportunity and taking that chance for some personal growth and to do something for myself. So Steve, it kind of all the stars aligned and everything worked out. And I was, had that opportunity to step in and be the head coach for a season.
Well, and I can imagine that's pretty exciting for you. You got the reins. Yeah.
And I mean, Steve, he's built an excellent program at the U of S, and it was really like, here's the reins and everything's set up, just don't screw it up. But I mean, it was really fun because my assistant coaches were two pretty veteran guys, so I mean, I was pretty insulated that way. And I still knew the majority of the players, and a handful that were new. I had coached the year before with the U18s at nationals, so it was a really good kind of insulated first step into that head coach role because I had a really strong staff. I had a strong team. U of S and Husky Athletic Department is excellent, and I knew everybody in there. So it was really gave me a chance to kind of settle in and not just feel like you were just white knuckling it the whole time because you had people that you could rely on and give you a chance to experience that at that level.
And all in all, 1 year, how was it? Like, just the experience itself.
Oh, it was awesome. Like, that's what I want to do. I mean, that's my end goal is to be able to coach at the university level full time. And obviously U of S would be my 1A choice just because of my ties to the program and how big of a chunk of my heart it has. But yeah, it was awesome. It was super fun. Lots of work, but I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it just kind of gave me that fire of this is really what I want to do. And so now how am I going to get here? So I'm in the middle of taking my master's in high performance coaching and technical leadership through UBC, which I don't tell many people is through UBC because, a big rival. But yeah, it was just kind of like, what do I need to do to get here? So started my master's when the Stars opportunity came up, jumped at that because I know I need head coaching experience to be able to get there. So yeah, it was awesome.
Well, if you wanted to switch over to the men's side, they do have with Dave leaving, you could jump over there.
I could. My family's been harassing me about applying. You want the job, you're just like, apply. So yeah, we'll see.
And I feel just from what I've read about him, it's going to be like, imagine having to step into those shoes, him
Absolutely.
being the wit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Dave's an awesome guy. He was excellent. The year that I was there, he was fantastic. Anything I needed, he was always there and somebody that I could go talk to about whatever. And he was always willing to lend a hand. And he's always been a really big supporter of the women's hockey program just in general. So yeah, those are going to be some pretty big shoes to fill. And he's quite a character. It's pretty fun. So yeah, it's going to be, that's a big challenge. Whoever steps in there and gets that role, the expectation is you win a national championship like soon, if not your first year, right? So there's a ton of pressure in that role for sure.
Well, I like you said, like anybody that jumps into those shoes are, but it's gonna be exciting to see who they bring in. And
we were talking about this earlier, myself and assistant coaches, and it's gonna be somebody good. Like there's gonna be out of the university jobs in Canada, it's kind of U of A, UNB, and here. And UNB hasn't been open for how long with Gardner McDougall, and he'll be there for a long time. And Dave was here for 28 years, I think. So these jobs don't come around often. There's going to be some big names, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's assistant coaches at the pro level that are applying for that job. So it's going to be fun to see whoever it is, and I'm excited because it's somebody that I'll probably get to, once we're back into Merlis, it's somebody that you get to come into contact with at least every once in a while, and somebody that you get to work with and learn from. So it'll be interesting. I
was going to say Mike Babcock. I think he doesn't have a full schedule. He could jump up there, right?
No, well, yeah, but I think he's got a pretty sweet contract. He's getting paid to not. I don't know if I'd give that up.
I was just thinking he's a Saskatchewan boy.
That's true. Might just wants to spend a little more time at the lake and be a little bit closer.
You know what? I think he needs a break. He's been giving her with Detroit for how long? And then he was with Toronto, and then that kind of whole I guess, falling out party that they had in Toronto, I would want a break.
Yeah, no, and that's totally fair too. And spend some time with your family and just take a rest and reevaluate where you're at.
And
getting a pretty nice little salary to decide. I wouldn't.
Well, I wouldn't complain either, honestly. If I was getting paid millions to do nothing, yes.
For sure.
But I don't think that's far-fetched to possibly think about that. If, Bab's wanting to, stay in Saskatchewan, coach university level, I think he would do great at it.
Yeah, who knows? It's tough to say. I mean, it's big shoes to step in. Wouldn't be the first time, that Babs stepped in after Adolph somewhere. Because then Dave left Lethbridge to come back to the U of S. Babs took the Lethbridge job. So.
Okay. All the pieces are putting. Okay. So to finish off the interview, how is it for you coaching girls at the 15, 16, and 17-year-old age range?
It's fun. It's a bit of a challenge, but it's fun. I mean, I sound like I'm old. I don't think I'm old, but there's always stuff. There's phrases, and you're always trying to. At least it keeps you up with what's trendy and what the new slang is. But, definitely not the new music though.
Oh, just garbage.
Yeah. So no, it's fun. Like, it's fun that way. They bring a lot of energy to the rink. So I really enjoy that. But there's also the challenges of just being a young teenager. So you always have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well, with the ups and downs of school, home, boyfriend, or significant other. How those all pieces kind of all mesh and play together, and how I think the biggest thing for me is just a reminder, and spending so much time at the university level. There is a big difference in maturity, and just remembering, when you're that age, there's some things that are really important to you, that, as you get older in life, you're like, why does that even matter? Like, why are we putting a lot of energy into worrying about this? But it's just kind of a reminder to get back to their level. But I mean, overall, it's fun and I enjoy it, and they bring tons of energy, and that's why I keep doing it and keep coming back and love working with them, because they're a lot of fun.
Well, all I can say, Robin, is I really hope that we can get some hockey back in the new year and get the Stars back on the ice. And I wish you and the Saskatoon Stars all the best of luck this season.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time or asking me to come on tonight. And let's hope things go well in the next handful of weeks, and we're able to get back rolling and get to playing some games for the second half of the season here. But we'll see. I mean, just hopefully everybody's making some good decisions over the Christmas break here, and we can turn this around. And I mean, it's tough because in the big scheme of things, hockey's not, as much as we think hockey's the most important thing, it's given us a real perspective of that it's not. I mean, for those of us that love being at the rink every single day, it's tough not to be there. So,
you know what? If I had the option of watching WHL hockey every day for 365 days, I would not get sick and tired of it at all.
No, you bet. Me either. I'll take a day at the rink anytime.
Well, Robin, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, and getting to know a little bit more about the Saskatoon Stars and a little bit about your history too. So thank you again for coming on the Sask Sports Show.
Awesome. You're more than welcome, and anytime I'm happy, like I said, happy to chat and share my opinion.
Well, and I also want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday as well. I guess we'll catch you in the new year.
Sounds great. Thank you. Same to you, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you. So that concludes our show, the Sask Sports Show tonight, brought to you by Southwest Terminal. Make sure to check out the Sask Sports Show every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. and make sure to tune in next week for another episode. So I hope you guys have a good night, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year.